You're watching Auto News Now. I'm Kristen Strakalitis. On today's episode, Jamie Butters, host of the Daily Drive podcast, sat down with automotive news reporter John Irwin. They talked about the ACT Expo, a clean transportation gathering that focused on solutions like battery electric trucks and renewable diesel.
John Irwin, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Thanks for having me again.
John, you just got back from the ACT Expo. What is the ACT Expo?
It's the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo. It's in Long Beach. It's 11 years old now. It's focused exclusively on trucking, Class 8, Class 7, Class 8, Class 4, Class 5, Class 6, basically anything but passenger vehicles. It's about 11 years old. It's been ramping up in popularity quite a bit as electrification has really become such a key topic in that sector as well over the last several years, and attendance has been jumping, and it's a big deal now in that sector.
Yeah, the trucks are an interesting case study, both for electrification and cleaning the system, and also we see it a lot in autonomy, where it brings a lot of things. And I don't know if they address that at ACT. It's not exactly a clean technology, but certainly trucking is just getting a lot more interesting. While you were there, you wrote about a partnership between Penske Truck Leasing and Shell, not Shell Oil, but Shell Recharge Solutions. So this is about charging?
Yes, Penske and Shell. It's interesting. Shell, you wouldn't think necessarily big oil giant like that would be featured prominently at a Clean Transportation Expo, but it's there essentially to show off what it's doing with fleet charging. It's been doing a lot, trying to set up charging stations around the country, working with fleets, including Penske and its truck fleet. It'll be providing charging stations for a handful of locations around the country, primarily in California to start, but moving around the country as far east as Pennsylvania. So it's interesting just looking at what even companies like Shell and other oil companies are doing to, as electrification takes off, as there are fewer vehicles powered by oil and gas on the road. Obviously, that's a long-term threat to them if they were just to continue selling gas. So it's an interesting look at what even companies like that are doing moving forward.
Yeah, it's sort of a hedge, I guess, strategically.
Yeah,
probably also some goodwill. I think sometimes maybe companies like that get accused of greenwashing, trying to show off a few projects to make it look like they're doing more good, but it seems like they're pretty serious.
It does. They're again, they had a pretty large presence at the show, a couple different press conferences. Of course, it doesn't help or doesn't hurt them that when starting projects like this, that they're under some government mandates over in Europe to work on projects like this, of course, but they are putting some money into this. And, we're seeing more partnerships like this pop up. So they are serious about it, even if we can talk about what the motivation might be at the very top all day, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, partnering with a company like Penske Truck Leasing, that's an important step. You're probably not just fooling around.
Exactly. Yeah, and Penske on their part, they wouldn't want to fool around on that sort of thing either. If they're signing a commitment like this, they would want these chargers up and running as quickly as possible. They're depending on them.
You also wrote about something called renewable diesel. And of course, diesel has become quite the dirty word, but it also really provides a lot of power. What is, renewable diesel? How does that happen? And how does it improve the cleanliness, help the environment compared to regular diesel produced from oil?
Yeah, it's interesting. I before the conference, candidly, I didn't know too much about renewable diesel, but there was a lot of talk about it there. Essentially, it's diesel fuel made from resources, such as vegetable oils, different greases, that sort of thing. These clean sources that can, go into a vehicle power and engine. It's interesting if you look at some of these companies. It's not only battery electric vehicles that they were showing off at the expo, not only hydrogen, but even vehicles powered by renewable diesel or even renewable natural gas. Volvo, for instance, they're heavily involved in the trucking space. They see battery electric vehicles of course, playing a big role with Class 7 and Class 8 trucks and hydrogen vehicles. But in the long run, they're even seeing internal combustion engines sticking around for a while, in large part because of renewable diesel. They can, especially these super long trips where maybe you can't, afford to wait for a long time, but you still need to meet government mandates for clean transportation. This could be a way to do it. It's still an internal combustion engine, but it's powered by a diesel that's, not your traditional diesel that's going to contribute to carbon emissions and that sort of thing. So it's interesting. We'll see what share of the market that will take up. Right now, as with battery electric vehicles and hydrogen, it's still a very, very small portion of the market. But there's a lot of talk about that in addition to electric vehicles and hydrogen and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting intermediate step to utilize the diesel engines and vehicles that are already out there, but maybe power them in a cheaper way or in a cleaner way. Certainly, we hear a lot of smart people saying, in the future, some future state, when we would burn gas, like in a passenger car, it's probably when we would use an electric, plug-in battery car. And when we use diesel is when we would use hydrogen. But of course, manufacturing hydrogen can be a very dirty process. A lot of efforts around trying to figure out how to do that cleanly. But that's interesting to see some work on renewable diesel as well.
Thanks for tuning in. Listen now to Jamie's full interview and the day's headlines on the Daily Drive podcast, available on all podcasting platforms. Have a great day.